fear is what's driving all of this. Fear of those who are the perpetrators, their fear of exposure. Fear from some people who couldn't come forward, but they just want to make it to retirement. We're talking about people in academia. We're talking about people all over. Wouldn't it be something if we could just turn loose of that fear just long enough? There might actually be something that we could do significant that could possibly save the planet. There's a phalanx of problems out there to deal with. The truth of it is a harsh reality, but it's true. But this stuff that's being sprayed overhead with its desiccant effect, smothering plants, metal infiltrating the human body, all these various diseases, they're not going to tell you that they're wrong. The universities are not going to tell you that, sorry, here, you get your money back. We were teaching the wrong stuff the whole time. They're not going to do that.
If global geoengineering started, it could cause droughts in Asia and Africa. And they state that to the American public for probably obvious reasons. Why would they tell the American public that it could also cause droughts here? Why wouldn't it cause droughts here? There's nothing special about America and the geography here that would not have the same effect as Asia and Africa. If the atmosphere is filled with particulates, those particulates diminish and disperse rainfall, period. There's too many condensation nuclei, so the water droplets do not combine and fall as rain. They simply adhere to those tiny particles and migrate further, and that's exactly what we see.
One of the suggestions about geoengineering has been that we genetically modify trees and plants. We genetically modify crops to be aluminum resistant, and this is ongoing at this time. And part of the geoengineering scheme is to say we're going to put all these chemicals and particles into our atmosphere, which is going to cause air pollution, water pollution, changes in soil pH, and could disrupt agriculture crop production to a great degree. So therefore, instead of saying that maybe this isn't a good idea that we pollute our air, water, and soils with the chemicals we're going to put into the atmosphere, which do come back down, there's a scheme abounding, which is happening right now, to modify some crops so that they are aluminum resistant to the types of chemicals and particles they're going to put into the atmosphere.
It's just going to get worse until the point where we're not going to be able to grow anything at all unless it's a Monsanto genetically modified abiotic stress resistant seed.
The chemical companies and Monsanto and all of these companies are working together to make us totally dependent on their products for growing corn or growing any kind of agricultural product or trees, whatever. We're going to corporatize not only where the rainfall goes and who gets it through geoengineering and weather modification schemes, but we're also going to say that these are going to be the only crops that are going to grow in areas where we're putting in toxic chemicals that are coming down and altering the soils.
One of the most basic things about human society is that we need food and water. And these are two of the things that are most severely dependent upon good weather. Rain at the right time of the year, sunshine so crops can grow, not enough sunshine and they don't grow, too much water, the plants die, not enough water, the plants die. All of this goes back to the amount of food that's available. So if you starve people, they will be vulnerable. They will be much easier to manipulate and forced to do whatever a government wants them to do.
The condensation trail is very similar in many ways to when you go outside on a cold day and exhale, you create a condensation trail. That little cloud is a condensation trail. Now, if you take a 2-mile walk on a cold day and you can turn around and you can see your condensation trail tracking all the way back for 2 miles, that's how crazy it is.
There'll be some outside influence doing that. Thank you.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real. They're spraying almost every day. I watch the clouds and watch the spraying program going on. I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us.
Around and I see people are starting to look up and see that. Many times I've spoken about chemtrails and I get this blank look on my face. What are you talking about? I'm saying, look up. As a pilot, before I fly, I look up. And so, boy, they're really out there working.
When you look up at the sun and you see a white haze, that is aluminum floating in the air right now, and it's coming from the aircraft.
There's a huge amount of aluminum being found because these sprays have aluminum, strontium, barium, manganese. And there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found. But aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form, and we're finding high rates of free aluminum in the soil, which is not natural.
The metal compounds that are being used are environmentally dangerous. We need to be monitoring them. We need to be testing them.
Okay, these previous guys, I've watched exactly what they do, and yes, they are correct. I've seen exactly the same stuff, so ditto marks on those. You want some figures? Okay, latest water test. Tested the rain. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0. So 13,100 is pretty damn much, folks. It used to be 0, then it was 100s in the 2000s, and then since 2010, it's into the 1,000s and the latest 13,100. In the snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 61,000 micrograms per liter, 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from if it's not coming from the soil?
Under assault right now. It's not alarmism, it's not exaggeration. This type of weather modification puts out chemicals and toxins, some known, some not known. Many people who try to debate this issue, if they ask you why they should believe this is going on, we have film of it happening, end of the argument. That's it. There's no debate, no discussion, this is not speculation. Also indicative of different materials being expelled from different portions of the aircraft. So again, this amounts to weather warfare, period. The U.S. has historically engaged in weather warfare around the globe. This is historical fact. We have data going back to Vietnam, 1968, Project Popeye. 1976, UN passed resolutions forbidding weather modification in wartime. So again, this is not speculation. We live in a society that's been trained to shut down when they hear the word conspiracy theory. They've been conditioned pretty well. But the bottom line is this is the issue that can't be ignored any longer. People can ignore Kennedy, people can ignore false flag events like Vietnam and even whatever happened on 9/11, but this issue can't be ignored. In the North State, for example, we took variants of different planes, the different configurations of spray apparatus. This is an ongoing experiment. There's likely many different configurations. We see aircraft trails that have different color composition. So this is an ongoing experiment of which we are all a part, like it or not. More configurations. Obviously, there's a whole lot of planes with a whole lot of tanks doing a whole lot of something. So this kind of footage should not be ignored. Clearly, these are what would appear to be passenger planes, most of them with windows. So there appear to be many different types of aircrafts involved in the spraying activities. This is what we have. Again, global geoengineering, the ever-changing experiment, and we are, again, part of that experiment. Russian scholar warns of secret U.S. climate change weapon. We have Russia engaged in this as well. We also have China. And this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to get any sort of mainstream coverage, because the big players are all involved up to their eyeballs. So that's one of the reasons the media coverage is so sparse, but it's coming. What do weather weapons do? They wreak havoc in countries without anybody knowing they're even under assault. In the case of floods, droughts, all of this is a form of weather weaponry and weather warfare. And there is no arguing that we are all a part of weather warfare when our climate is being impacted the way it is right now. Again, countries around...
The use of aluminum. Why do they use aluminum? People ask that question. And this is stated on the record, again, it's in the geoengineering patents, solar radiation management. Aluminum is very reflective, and that is the goal of solar radiation management, to reflect some of the sun's incoming thermal energy. So the stated goal by some of the world's most recognized geoengineers is to put 20 million tons. That's a lot. That's about 1,000 tankers a day, fully loaded KC-135s with 60 plus tons each. So 20 million tons a year of aluminum nanoparticulates. It's important people understand that term. These are extremely small particles. In fact, they're exponentially smaller than anything that any air quality public testing agency tests for. So these particulates go completely under the radar. People always ask, well, if this was coming down, air quality agencies would tell us. Absolute nonsense. The system is designed not to show these particulates. So at best, air quality agencies test for PM 2.5 microns. We're talking about particles that are, again, exponentially smaller. The smaller the particle, the more harmful it is to the human body. So these particles are so small. And we have, and by the way, we're not shooting from the hip on any of this. All of this data is absolutely documented by global experts. In the case of how harmful these particulates are to the human body, internationally recognized neuroscientist Dr. Russell Blaylock has stated on the record that these particles are so small they enter right through the lung lining, straight into the bloodstream, where they adhere to cell receptors like a plaque. Therefore, everything that we would recognize associated with this material, every ailment is going off the charts. ALS, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, type 2 diabetes, obesity, the list goes on and on and on. And as far as the connection with aluminum, this is where it becomes more astounding, Dr. Manning. I was just refused the opportunity to sponsor the Alzheimer's Association fundraising event in Northern California, big event. They allow anybody to sponsor that pays, but they wouldn't allow me to sponsor because of our site and because we wanted to disclose the fact that aluminum is associated with Alzheimer's with peer-reviewed scientific study. But the Alzheimer's Association does not want to talk about that. In fact, their official position is that they recognize no connection between aluminum and Alzheimer's. And how interesting is this? We now know that there is sponsorship from the aluminum industry toward the Alzheimer's Association. What a surprise. You have the foxes running the henhouse.
The end game is aluminum dioxide in all the soils, where you've got to go to companies like Monsanto. They're coming out with whole seed lines that will grow in aluminum poisonous soil. But that's only part of it. It's about the seed banks, the seed arcs, all of this. It's about weather weapons, shutting down regions that don't play ball. They're already talking about a Chicago mercantile system that will bet on the weather. Well, it's going to be a rigged casino. They don't set up casinos without putting their finger on it, without controlling it. This is about playing God. This is about world government. And this is about genocide and population.